So the holiday season's coming up and you're looking to get that perfect gift, maybe for a loved one or maybe even for yourself. So you're trying to figure out if you should buy or lease that car. Well, in today's video, we're going to go over the pros and cons of both and, kind of an opinion on which one's really better.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So many people often think if you can't afford to buy a car, you should just lease it. Well, we're going to go a little bit into detail, so stay with us.
Yeah.
But to break it down the simplest, leasing is basically renting a car.
Yeah.
Like you would rent a car, but for a much longer than normal period of time. So typically you go to a Hertz or an Enterprise and you rent a car for a weekend or a week, however long you're on vacation. This is more like a 2 to 3 to 5 year span you're renting this car. So with that, there's a lot of perks, obviously, because with renting a car, just like at Hertz or leasing a car through a dealership, typically you don't cover the maintenance.
Yeah, because a lot of times it'll be covered in the warranties. Typically, when you're leasing a newer car, so you're going to have the manufacturer warranty, any dealership warranty there is. Now, if you go past the mileage on those warranties, then you could be responsible for covering some of that maintenance. But also, on top of that, if you go past a certain mileage that you and the dealership agreed with, you'll have extra fees because you're putting more wear and tear on the car than they want you to. So it's a double-edged sword right there. But yeah, like Ryan said, leasing is typically for a long term. And a lot of people kind of just view it as paying for the depreciation of that new car. You're not working towards ownership. You're not paying it off to where eventually you'll own it. Like Ryan said, this is kind of like renting.
Right. So they have to entice you. So one of the biggest pros about leasing a car is typically it's a lower monthly payment.
Yeah.
Because again, if you had to rent a car and you never got equity in the car ownership, and then you could rent or own a car loan on the car for the same monthly payment, why would you lease the car?
Yeah.
So usually you'll get a newer car, a little bit more features, and a lower monthly payment than you would. And a lot of times you have almost no money down or very little bit of money down versus an actual loan on a car and trying to get towards ownership, you'll have put money down and you'll have a little bit extended period of time to get ownership in the vehicle.
Yeah. Interest rates are a little higher for, actual car loans versus leasing and everything. So everything's just a little bit more expensive. You'll have to look up rates in your area because they can vary a little bit, of course, with the car you're
from
trying
day
to
to day nowadays.
Yeah. Now, another feature a lot of people get attracted to leases by is working in a buyout option, where basically you and the dealership work it out to where at the end of your lease, you'd be able to buy the car at a certain price. And it's going to be a price that the manufacturer or dealership is going to kind of calculate based on what they think the depreciated value is going to be. So, if you try and lease a $50,000 car, maybe they're like, okay, at the end of your 3-year term, it'll probably be worth $20,000. So you could buy it for that kind of thing. And that's a bit of a risk. Now, let's say that you were to look at a situation that is, very realistic nowadays. Let's say you started a lease 3 years ago or something, 4 years ago, whatever it may be, and you leased a $50,000 car. Now your monthly payment may be about $600 or $700 as opposed to buying that car. You probably would be paying about $1,000 a month with today's interest rates and everything. So right there, you can already see the monthly savings. But let's say your lease ended, now or within the last year or so, when used car prices are still so high. You had locked in your buyout price at say $20,000, but your car is still worth $40,000 or $45,000. Well, you can still buy it at that $20,000 price because you locked it in at that, and you can just simply go around and keep the car. But you could also just turn around and sell it for a profit, and those profits may be enough to actually cover all the lease payments you just made. So essentially, you got to rent a car for a few years for free. Now, this is a very, very rare instance. Something crazy like the car market of today would have to occur. So do not be banking on this. Some people are like, oh yeah, it's going to work out. I'm confident that, in a couple of years, the market's still going to be high.
Yeah.
No one can accurately predict it. No one was going to predict this. Okay?
Right. Yeah, definitely not common at all. And that is just such a crazy situation that many people might even start to preach like that's an investment.
Yeah.
But cars are not an investment in that way. When you're looking to own, you can flip cars. Many people do. You can do many things with cars, Turo and all the rest of them, to make money with cars and kind of make them an investment. But since they almost always depreciate, they almost always lose value over time.
At a high rate.
Right. Even in some cases this happens, it's so rare that it's not worth it. And that's why dealerships are willing to bank on the idea that, hey, I'm going to tell you what we think the future value is, which isn't really beneficial to them because they could get screwed in this way. But historically, it's happened so many times all throughout the years that car prices go down so fast that they're willing to make that bet because they're saying, okay, I'm betting everything that this car is going to go down in value over time and I'm going to make all the money from this deal. And you're just going to get drive a nice new car. So look at it in that way.
Yeah, that would happen in today's time. Right now when the used car market's still kind of high, if you were to try and go to a lease right now and you lease a $50,000 car, they're like, well, rates are, and prices are staying so high. In 3 years, it may still be worth $45,000. Well, in 3 years, let's say the market normalizes and dips a little bit, like it probably should. Then the car ends up being worth only 30,000. Well, then at that point, you're not going to want to buy it because your buyout option is higher than what you could just get it for on the open market.
Right.
So at that point, you would just return your car. You'd have to start either a new lease or
Start
buy
all
a
over
car
again.
again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the downside. You're endlessly paying towards leasing or having to buy eventually, kind of thing. You're
Right.
basically kicking the can down the road. Versus ownership, eventually you own a car, and hopefully you can avoid those car payments and just drive that car till it quits. Really.
Yeah. And so if you calculate it out, more times than not, we've looked into this a lot. At first, leasing is worth the money because
Yeah,
again, there's
it's
almost no
short-term savings.
right. There's almost no money down, and your monthly payment's lower.
Hmm.
But over the long haul, even including maintenance and gas and all of that,
Yeah.
owning a car almost always works out. Because you think if it's 3 to 5 years down the line and the loan is paid off, and now they have $0, and you're still paying $6, $7, $8, $900 payments continuously, obviously it's going to surpass it.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference or the big catch right there between the two. If we had to sum this whole video up, take that clip.
Yeah. So like Ryan just said,
Right.
short-term versus long-term. Now, if you're one of those people who doesn't really care about that, just like driving new cars every few years, you're like, I kind of got money. I don't really want to worry about maintenance and everything. I can kind of just exchange cars.
Then this
Maybe
is for
leasing is
you.
for you. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not really our personal approach. We
Right.
both go for ownership, but again, it's kind of what you value. And if you want to just or have to save more on your monthly, then maybe leasing is kind of a route you need to go right now. But, there's pros, cons
Yeah,
to both, really.
definitely. And like Taylor said, in the general scheme, like more times than not, our thoughts would be to own the car and work
Yeah.
towards ownership and get a loan at a low interest rate, usually with a credit union, and own the car eventually and just drive the car till it's kaputs or
Hmm.
until it's not safe anymore.
Yeah.
And then get a new one or a new to you, not a new
Yeah.
car,
Yeah. Yeah.
a new car to you. So it's still a used car would be our recommendation for the
Hmm.
most part, or in most 9 out of 10 cases. But leasing every once in a while can work out. The numbers make sense and in a very particular situation. So we hope this helped you guys with that holiday shopping.
Yeah.
If you're going to go get that new car for the holidays, that perfect gift, are you going to buy it? Are you going to lease it? Let us know in the comments as always. And if we didn't answer any of your questions, or you still have something you're like, oh, that gave me a new question, please leave that in the comments as well. We'd love to answer, help as much as we can. All this research we've been doing for us, but it's also for you guys. So
Yeah.
always like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one.
Yep. Happy holidays, guys.